Hello, everyone. The monkeys are back. Welcome to another episode of Monkey Business. We're here today to discuss Dune Part 2. So, I think in order to introduce us, it's only fair that we have our Dune 2 superlatives. So, first up, one of your hosts, Warren, voted most likely to wear Austin Butler's bald cap. Joined by Will, who's voted most likely to lead the Oscar campaign for Timothée Chalamet way too early.
Very much so. Very much so.
We're also joined by Carter, who was voted most likely to be Christopher walking into the theater too late.
Very true.
How's it going, Carter?
It's going good. The monkeys are back.
All right, well, would you like to give us the synopsis of the film?
Sure. So basically, Dune 2 opens immediately after Paul Atreides' fight with Jameis um, in the desert of Arrakis. And you're now on this journey with Paul to become a Fremen. And the way he goes about that is by going to Sietch Tabr, by riding a worm, by receiving a new name, and by furthering the mythos behind him as the Lisan al-Gaib. And basically this universe's version of a coming Messiah, really. And the way the world in Dune works is that this isn't explained too well in the movies, but inside of the book, people are bred based on bloodlines and lineages to be able to do different things. And so the Kwisatz Haderach takes what is a female-only role of the Bene Gesserit and becomes a male person who is able to see the past and the present and basically all possible futures at once in order to pick the most opportunistic one, the most beneficial one to themselves or to the world. And we kind of see this in glimpses of with Spice and kind of how Paul grows as a character, um, as a warrior and as a leader. His mother also is growing at this time, Jessica, and she is pregnant with Aaliyah. I don't know if the name is said in the movie or if it's just your sister the entire time, but her name is Aaliyah. And they both, after Siege Tabor loses their Reverend Mother or their head Bene Gesserit, Jessica takes this role up herself through a process of drinking blue worm juice, essentially. And this awakens a higher version of Bene Gesserit, foreseeing powers as well. And I believe, at least the movie seems to show that her voice is also awakened, and kind of a crude way of thinking about what the voice is in the movie is it's whenever the bass drops while someone's speaking. And the idea in the book is that you are using a tone of voice to compel someone to do something at the highest level. So it's almost as though you're kind of calling a dog to like come over here and sit down or something like that. It's like, all right, sit, roll over. You're just doing that, but with humans, people, and just entities, things with consciousness.
It's like Compulsion in the Vampire Diaries.
I would probably assume so. It's something I've never watched though. Um, but from here, Paul has to plan a way to either choose Chani and a peaceful life in northern Arrakis, or to go south, where all the fanatics are on Dune, a place that most of the world, or most of the universe in this here believes to be uninhabitable. But to the Fremen, of course, nothing's uninhabitable.
A
At
peaceful life.
Bit of a
in
stretch.
comparison, well, in comparison to billions of people dying of
Yeah.
starvation and stuff like that. Basically,
Trillions.
he can choose to let the world live without the future Messiah, the future Kwisatz Haderach, or he can choose to kind of fulfill this destiny. At this same time, the Harkonnens, who are basically the leather-clad bad guys from the first movie, are still working with Baron Rabban, who is Dave Bautista's character, doing a sloppy job of just trying to kill the Fremen and doing an anger raid and purge of them, which doesn't work out too well. And now you're introduced to his or to another one of the Baron's or of the main Baron Harkonnen's nephews, who is Fade Rautha. And Fade Rautha is basically a psychotic warrior who with high intelligence and just a whole lot of drive. And he actually is the one who ends up becoming the leader of Arrakis for this film for the Harkonnens because Raban has failed so much. There is also a bit of subtlety with the way that the Emperor and the Empress are involved in everything, because once again, Dune, the main underlying story is it's all political power play. Who can have the most power? And power over spice is power over all, which is the line that the movie opens up with. And Dune or Arrakis is the only planet that produces spice. So it's vitally important to the entire universe's economy. Um, and then kind of the epitome of the movie is Paul versus the Emperor and Feyd-Rautha, which is a total the Emperor is basically told to come to Arrakis in order for negotiations and to figure everything out or to try and bring peace to just be a final pawn. But then with his Sardaukar army, and then Paul attacks both the Emperor and the Harkonnens with while riding sandworms and using the Fremen and the Fedaykin and laser guns and all this stuff, as well as the family atomics that have been kind of added into the story as well. So the end all be all is that Paul wins at the very end in Mortal Kombat by killing off Feyd-Rautha, who is who acts as the knight in shining armor, or what's the word for somebody who stands in for a duel? Do you guys know?
They say stand or present your champion.
Yeah, yeah, he's the champion for the Emperor.
Yep.
Paul kills Feyd-Rautha and assumes the Emperor duties, and kind of hurts Chani a little bit because he says, "I'm going to marry the Empress, so I can get this political power, but Chani's always going to be my main woman." And then the rest of the universe says, "I don't really agree with that situation," and so now Paul wants to kill all of them as well. And that's Dune Part Two. Sorry if that was a little long-winded.
No, that was good. So let's start there with the Harkonnens. What do you guys think of the Harkonnens in this film?
Love them. I seriously love the Harkonnen. Just the way their planet was done with the black sun and the black fireworks, and just kind of how the sunlight cast like a different aura over everybody. But then as soon as you moved indoors, you could see everything in a more natural lighting. It is really cool. I loved the anger in a lot of the characters, and I also loved just the acting of all three of Raban, the Baron, and Feyd-Rautha, played by I've already said, but like Dave Bautista and Austin Butler are the two nephews. Just really talented stuff, really well timed. Just they emoted really well for all of their scenes and all of their lines, in a bunch of different ways. And I think they really together carried being the main antagonists of the entire film.
I quite liked Austin Butler's performance in this movie. Austin Butler with the bald cap, pretty great. Was a pretty great actor even without the bald cap, but I think he got the bald cap boost for this film. What did you think, Carter?
I think he was awesome. I think Austin Butler gets a lot of hate for some reason. He gets a lot of crap because he's always changing his voice and he's just like so committed to these roles. But I,
No,
eh,
he's good now. He hired a voice coach to help him lose the Elvis voice.
yeah, and now he's gonna have to hire another one to lose this voice. But like I think I told Will, like I think he's kind of becoming one of the greats right in front of our eyes. It's really cool to see. I think he's just a fantastic actor. It just like so committed, and he seems like a genuinely cool person, not like, a douchebag, which a lot of method actors are. So it's very cool to see. He is awesome in this movie. He is just intimidating and creepy and gross and a force to be reckoned with. Really, pretty much everything you could have imagined that you want from a villain from this movie. Um, Overall, the Harkonnens, yeah, I'd back up what Will said. I think their planet is awesome. I think the gladiator fight is one of the highlights of the movie. I think it has the best song in the movie during that plays. Um, Everyone watching and all that, the stadium is great. Um, it's very CGI heavy, the entire crowd. They never cut to a close-up of people cheering. It's always just, like them doing the wave kind of, which is it's a little strange, but it doesn't matter. It works. Um, when, Lady Fenring shows up and she's talking and the Baron's talking and it adds all this. And the duel itself is great. Um, awesome. I have some issues with how the Harkonnens and the Atreides are portrayed, but I think I'll get to that later. Um, the decision to make everyone bald is very strange. I don't know. Because in the book, they all are described as having hair. So I don't know. Like in the first one, it's, the Baron and his mentat are bald, and Dave Bautista, of course, who's actually bald. So they just carried it over. I guess that was what Denis. That's how he envisions it. So that's what he went with. Bunch of albino people.
I think that's why I liked Austin Butler's performance better than Dave Bautista's because Dave Bautista didn't wear the bald cap. He didn't get the bald cap boost.
I do think Dave Bautista's a bit weak in this film.
Yeah,
Um, but I think he's a weak link in a great film. For me. And so I still enjoy his performance. I still think it fulfills the purpose of being of kind of slowly trying to you're realizing you're losing control, but you have to fight for it. So that just makes you angry and crazy all the time. But he was all right.
I concur.
I concur.
All right. So then on the flip side, we have like the Atreides and kind of their evolution. Um, I really like how he has the signet the whole time, and that kind of plays a bit of a major role in this film, just to show that he's not trying to lose that identity. It's almost the one that it's not almost, it is the one he holds most near and dear to himself, is that biological identity from his father and his mother. And to kind of fly the flags while they're on the sandworm for the Fremen to adopt another insignia during the final fight was really, really cool as well to kind of show the bonding of those two nations together to become the final powerhouse of the universe was I loved it. I like that they brought it up a little bit more. Kind of Paul's banter with Chani about swimming and how it could rain for weeks and all that stuff, and just and like kind of even some of the scenes that were done on Caladan in the first movie, like where he just puts his hand on the water and just feels it. And this film, he just puts his hand on the sandstone, just feel it and kind of know that he's changed locations, but he hasn't changed who he is. But who he is evolving. But it will never be anyone other than an Atreides. In the book, being a Harkonnen means a whole lot more than in the movie. Like it's a huge twist, because of how much the political power play is bled into the book. But again, the book is huge, and I still think Denis did a really good job, with what he did here. But yeah, thoughts on the Atreides side of everything since we covered the Harkonnens.
Sure, I'll say what I was gonna say. Like Will said, it's a huge twist in the book that Paul is a Harkonnen, that Jessica is the daughter of the Baron Harkonnen. And it takes place at a different time. It's not something that is revealed to both of them when they take the water of life. Paul, when he's in the desert for the first time, it would have been a scene in Dune Part 1, actually, when Paul and Jessica are running through the desert and they have to camp for the night somewhere, and there's just they hit a spice patch or something, and Paul gets these visions, and he figures out that he's essentially, the Baron Harkonnen who just attacked the city and killed all the Atreides is his grandfather. It's a crazy twist, and the entire like first third or more of the book is just developed on how much, how evil and brutal and animalistic the Harkonnens are. Gurney says a lot of that in throughout both movies. But he like in the book, it's super stressed how much hatred Gurney has for the Harkonnens and Idaho and the Duke. Because, there's this, political power struggle going on. They're totally at odds, and they're totally different, is what you're led to believe. And then it's revealed that Paul is literally half Harkonnen, half Atreides. And that's kind of the point in the book where everything swirls around and it all becomes gray. And um it's no longer black and white. It's no longer, Atreides good versus Harkonnen evil. It's these are just forces that exist. They're just houses that exist that have been running things for centuries and centuries. And it's all been funneled down to Paul, and it's now up to him to decide what he's going to believe in, what he's going to be, because everything he's believed at that point has kind of been thrown out. Now that his identity has changed like instantly in a snap. Um, I mean, not like Will went crazy with hearing that, but like I do think that. I think that's why he decides to become a Fremen. He has strong connections to his father and to his mother and to his friends, but he absolutely doesn't forsake the Atreides because he carries that ring around him, a, in his pocket around his neck the whole time, and that's something he holds dear and something he remembers. But he kind of forsakes all the stuff with the Imperium, and he kind of goes into the desert to become a new person, I think. I don't think when he touches the sand in this, he's remembering his time back in Caladan when he's touches the water and like he's like, oh, I'm the same person. I think he is actively changing who he is throughout the first movie and throughout this movie because it's a rejection of both the Harkonnen and the Atreides bloodlines to an extent, I think.
I think it's also interesting how the film shows him throughout, like Will was talking about with the signet ring, and you sort of have throughout the movie find out that as you find out that he's an Atreides, and then he becomes like the leader of the Fremen, and then you realize he's Harkonnen, and then he becomes Emperor. Like you have all these different sides of him as he's trying to figure out who he wants to be, and it's just a very interesting internal struggle with him.
I would say I think he goes into the desert trying to be somebody other than what he will eventually be, because he kind of drops the name Usul. That name is really only around for like a little bit of the movie. Mostly it's just Muad'Dib or Paul. And when he's at the war council, which was done fantastic, and we'll get to that later. But he's just like, I'm Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, and he kind of drops that final name to kind of say, hey, yeah, I came into the desert and I'm kind of one of you. I just think I stand here a little bit more. I think he's trying to fully embrace both, and kind of just he resigns himself to be the one who's going to control. But Carter, I really do agree with everything he said. It was really, really well put.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was worried about with the first movie because they didn't do the plot twist there, but I'd really like to hear that it's not, it, a lot of comparisons to Lord of the Rings and Star Wars with these movies, and maybe we'll get to that, but like the Harkonnens aren't Sauron, and the Harkonnens aren't the Sith, and the Atreides aren't the Jedi. This is a very, like I said, that's all gray area, and it's Paul kind of realizing that once he realizes who he is, and I believe he rejects that, and he goes and wants to become a Fremen because he sees how these people live and what they stand for, and he believes that to be the right way.
Yeah, it's a lot more George Martin than J.R. Tolkien.
Yep.
Which I think works really, really well, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
kind of making everybody gray, and instead of this whole here good guy, here bad guy, it is so much more interesting than your typical dark versus light fight. Um,
Hmm.
and just kind of putting a real struggle into this film was phenomenal.
Yeah. If I talk about the books too much, stop me, please. I know we're not here to
No, I'm here to bounce off that, bro.
Okay,
It's all good.
but two things. Just quickly, J.R.R. Tolkien hated Dune, so that's a very interesting thing to to consider. And the name Usul is a name for his siege. So only members of his siege call him Usul. So when he
Okay.
goes in, it's a very private, very personal name, and that's why in the book he doesn't really drop it. It's still used, but only by members of the siege. But in the movie, like
Okay, true, true,
there's really
true.
no need to call him Usul because everyone just is going to call him Muad'Dib. So when he goes to the War Council, he's not going to say I'm Usul because that's not his name to those people. To those people, his name is Paul Muad'Dib.
Yeah, I forgot that. Thank you.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Where do we go from there? Oh, Florence Pugh and Christopher Walken. Thoughts?
I thought Florence Pugh was great. Christopher Walken is kind of like, I mean, he was there. He didn't really do much. He was just kind of an old guy who just said a couple lines, walked around a little bit, and then made a couple like, oh no faces.
I've
Him,
heard, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
sorry, him in the throne at the end of the film looked awful. Like
Goofy.
it looked like such he just like posing up and everything. It's such a big imposing thing, and he's
I've
such a
heard
weak
conflicting
dude.
reports about Walken. Some say he knows very little about Dune. Some say he has read the books when he was like younger and he's a big fan. I don't know what to think. All I could think about, bro, when he was on the throne was the Jungle Book, bro. And all I can think about was Christopher Walken monkey, dude. Imagine if he was just a giant orangutan instead of actual person. So funny, dude. If he was just King Louis, bro, it's so similar, bro. He's King Louis on
Yeah.
the throne. He's got all the little monkeys surrounding him, and he's got, Paul coming up to him as Mowgli, and he's saying, talking about, who's gonna rule next? Is it gonna be
Mhm.
man or monkey? Dude, I just saw King Louis. So funny.
I for like a character who's not really in the movies, the princess, I love the addition of Florence Pugh and getting some of her diaries and kind of getting a little bit of insight into her life with a Bene Gesserit as like as a mentor, and then kind of being prone to the other conversation with the Reverend Mother and Lady Fenring, and just kind of her observing this whole thing. I've really enjoyed it. I know it wasn't a ton, but it really added to the depth of the final scene.
It showed you things from the like imperial perspective a little
Mhm.
bit.
I love Rulin. She is a phenomenal character, in my opinion. She's a very, very minor character, like throughout all of her appearances. But I was so
In the books,
happy.
you're saying?
Yes, and yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I was so happy that they used her in this, that she had a good role. Because in the book, she doesn't appear until literally the final scene.
Yeah.
But like maybe 50% of the excerpts before the chapters. Um, because in the book, before every chapter, there's like a sentence to a paragraph
Hmm.
of something from a history book in universe or something like that. A quote, a
Yeah.
famous something, or a song. And she has a lot of them. And so you're like, who is this Princess Ruling character? But yeah, her like contextualizing the story makes it so good. And she's just so interesting. And Florence Pugh is such a great actor. And she did it. And I think her costumes are awesome. I love the metal stuff hanging from her head. I know Will disagrees. It's great, bro. It's
I,
so
I just
wild and wacky.
I found them distracting. If
Really?
if if they had been on like a side character, like her handmaids or something,
Hmm.
wouldn't really have bothered me. But because she was the main focal point of a lot of the scenes, I found some of the outfits distracting, which is funny because I loved the way Jessica looked in a lot of the shots.
Hmm.
Like when she's finally dressed up at the War Council and at and in front of like the Padishah Emperor and Paul at the final scene with the Reverend Mother at the duel. I love the way the jewelry kind of drapes her face and kind of parts the nose, and it gives her this whole very like dominating persona. Um, and it's in the style of the Bene Gesserit, but kind of with the Fremen flair. I, I just thought here's Jessica and here's the rest of the Bene Gesserit, and even the Fremen have their own style and garb, and hers just felt like someone thought about it's like, oh, let's just do this. Um, I know there was probably a ton of thought into it, and no hate on any of the costume designers because y'all did a phenomenal job. In case any of you ever listen to this, massive respect.
We
But
say that
just her
every
outfits were
time.
like, I don't know, you never know, dude.
It's cool. Yeah, just impeccable costumes. It's crazy how good they are. But yeah, one of like the first lines in Dune Messiah is like, no, there has been, it's like, it says something, I don't know, I'm gonna get it wrong, but no other point in history has more recorded history about it than the years of Paul's reign. And like Irulan is like the chief scribe, like the leading witness and the most respected historian about that. And so that contextualizes the whole story part that like of what this is. And as I said, I told Will, I think I've only read three books, but the first book, just
Wait,
Dune,
and your
is
hype?
yeah, I've only
Or
read two
like
books
of the
ever in my life.
series?
Uh-huh. In the Dune series, I've only read the first three, but the first book, Dune, is just it's pretty much perfect. It's like one of the best books I've ever read.
It is.
It
You can
it
get through it quick
does
for being
not
like
get
700 pages.
it does not get better than that story. But personally, I think the world of Dune becomes like honestly maybe a little bit more interesting once you get past it, even though the story's it's hard to compare to that first one. But I think the reason for that is because Dune is kind of, as I said, like it's not Star Wars, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's this is the event that changed the world for the better, for the worse. There's the jury's out on that. But this is the exact moment. Like this is the they had the changing of the guard on Arrakis, the betrayal, and 2 years later, Paul is revealed to be still alive, comes in, crushes everything that had been set up, and changes and completely flips the world into chaos. And it's is people trying to understand and comprehend this event. And I think it's just so cool to think about it that way.
I love how you said crushes. Like that exact word summarizes exactly how I wanted to see everything played out in reading the book. Because I read the book after I watched the first movie. And so in that I came into this movie with some expectations and 99% of them were all fulfilled. There's definitely some stuff changed in Carter. We'll geek out about that later. And now. But just the absolute show of power that is the Fremen military was amazing. Like I wanted it to be like no struggle, no nothing. And that's kind of how they did it with the power of the worms, the power of the Fremen, the power of surprise, the power of the atomics, the power of laser guns and all this stuff, and the military and the leadership of Gurney Alec, and just kind of bringing all that onto the guy to just kind of go in the face of the Harkonnens and the Sardaukar and just wipe them out. It was such a well done show of force, and then for him to kind of come in, the scene plays out a little differently in the book, but when Paul just walks in to where the Emperor's throne is, and then walks past all the Sardaukar, kills his grandfather, the Baron, and then walks out and says, "Hey, kill the Fremen and bring everybody else to me."
He says
It,
kill the Sardaukar.
yeah, kill them all. Sorry, yeah,
Big change in the books.
kill Sardaukar and just bring everybody else to me. It was great, man. I loved it. He's just got a little bit of blood on him. Everybody else is still fighting. No one's winded, and they can keep going. It's good.
I think that scene was also very good at highlighting that, at least in that moment, he cared more about revenge than taking power. Because this whole journey that he's been on for, I don't know how long it's been since the attack and everything changed in the first movie and the world.
It's
But
like about 2 years.
so yeah, like this entire 2 years of just surviving and all these hardships he's been through, it's just been trying to survive so that he can get back at the Harkonnens for destroying all of the Atreides.
Yeah, like Will said, it's like he doesn't even look at anyone else. Like it cuts to Arulin and the Emperor and Feyd-Rautha, and they all look at him, but he just walks by straight to the Baron.
Warren, before me and Carter talk about it, what are your thoughts on Jessica being pregnant and talking with her child? Do you think that was kind of like done well as a special effect? Did you kind of get what had happened and all that stuff, or was it like this is just a little too weird?
Well, to be fair, kind of everything with Jessica's a little weird
Okay.
in both movies. uh, yeah, it was
In the
okay.
first one?
I mean, kind of everything around her character is a little weird. Although that's kind of just the Bene Gesserit to begin with, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you mean by like a little weird? Just kind of the fact that she has powers or that she's not married to the Atreides Baron and all that stuff,
There's just
or
something off-putting about her
what do you
character from the very first scene. There's always something a little off with her.
Off in what way? Just off, or is there, do you have any way to describe it?
yeah.
Like the way that she relates to other characters and other characters relate to her, there's always a bit of like fear. Like everyone's a little scared of her.
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
comes more into play in the books. One of the great lines of the first film and in the book is just like is when the Reverend Mother calls Paul a human. She's like, "I hope you live human," which is actually a compliment. It doesn't
Yeah.
come off that way in the movie so much, but essentially different people are bred to be different things. And so you being human is like one of the best things you can be. Everything else is just something that's made.
Everyone is a human in the movie, but how they're referred to. It's
That, yeah, thanks,
people
Carter.
of higher standing are referred to as humans because they are respected more.
Mhm. And so it's just the Bene Gesserit are the most feared because they're witches. Like they're that's kind of like their mythos is just kind of be in the background, move politics, and run the world. Like in this movie where Arulin, is that the
Hmm.
princess's name, Carter?
Yep. Ruin.
Where Arulin just says, "Did you advise my father to kill like the Atreides, the House of Atreides?" She's like, "Of course I did. Why else would he have done it?" It's like, yo, they are the hand that moves the universe, and they've been their whole lives trying to decide when to bring about the rise of the Kwisatz Haderach, when to bring about the rise of someone who can predict the future and to just do whatever. It's basically just a huge long science experiment of just there are no sides at the
Yeah,
very end as well. It's like
love that.
there are no sides. No one lost. We plan. And when she calls her Reverend Mother, it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing about this entire world. It's that all the great houses are just, it's all just a front. It's these, I mean, they genuinely believe that they are, they have control. And there's, major houses and minor houses, and they all have control over their planets and think, and they have armies and dukes and kings and think that they're in power. But the three groups of people that actually run the world are the Spacing Guild, who can, they, are the ones who fly through space, can take people here and there. Um, it's called Coam. I don't know what
I can't remember the
the mining
exact.
guild. I don't know, Coam Mining Guild. They're the ones that are in control of spice production. They can harvest spice, and that's the most important substance in the universe. And the third, the people who really run the world are the Bene Gesserit,
Mhm.
They're like
who
the
have
Fates in Greek
lands
mythology.
everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah,
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 really.
pretty much.
All right. So Warren, what if instead of Jessica just talking to the baby inside of her stomach, there was a fully sentient 2-year-old running around who could predict the future and pop in and out of Paul's visions, and also be immune to Paul's visions and kind of give advice and use the voice just like a Bene Gesserit. What would your thoughts on that be visually? Would you have preferred it over Jessica just talking to her stomach, or no?
I mean, if it was anything akin to the short and the bonus features of The Incredibles, Jack Jack Attack, then it would have been fantastic.
Dude, she's like a Jack Jack.
So except this 2-year-old can talk like fully, is very smart, and like talks smack to all of the political elites in the film, including the Reverend Mother. And people also want to kill her because she's weird. And she is, it's a 2-year-old.
I'm not sure how they would have approached it filmmaking wise, but I think it would have been an incredible viewing experience.
Yeah, I kind of I'm not gonna lie, I really like the decision to not have Aaliyah in the film. Carter, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do they do it? Is the, you know, it's next to impossible, maybe. But I was like, I was crushed. I was so devastated that Alia is not in this film, honestly, because she is a phenomenal character. She's one of my favorite characters. I think she is great. And in the book, she is the one that kills the Baron Harkonnen,
Hmm.
and she has like a lot to do. She is not just
Hmm.
like a comedic Jack Jack character. She runs around, she talks smack to all the political leaders, but in a very strange and very almost scary way, because she is a fully sentient 2-year-old. She is the preborn Reverend Mother, as they say, and
Yeah.
it's it really disappointed me that she wasn't in this movie, because she is so pivotal to a lot of what happens. Um, the third act of this movie becomes pretty much just a military campaign, and in it's all very well done, but in the book, it still delves into a lot of the trippy psychedelic stuff and all the visions and like discussions of fate and whatnot and all of that.
Yeah. Because Paul can't see Aaliyah in his visions, right? If I remember correctly.
I don't think
She
so, no.
yeah, she's just like this weird party who's not stronger than him, but completely unpredictable, which makes her a
Yeah,
very interesting character.
and it's because she is what they call preborn, right? It's because she was, when Jessica was pregnant, when she took the water of life, which, awakened her senses and her unborn child's. senses, and that's why it has. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know what remember the explanation is for that,
Basically,
but it's
she
because of
became
that
like a Bene
Paul
Gesserit,
has no
skipping
under.
everything.
Yeah, Paul has very little comprehension of Alia and her existence in his prescient visions
Mhm.
due to that.
Yeah, yeah. Warren, I was just curious as to how you might have, without reading the book, thought it would have worked out thematically. That's all. Carter, you said you also had some stuff you wanted to kind of talk about?
Um, I do. I'll get to that. One thing. I mean, we've already spoiled the whole thing, obviously, but Anya Taylor-Joy showing up as adult
Yeah.
Alia. Thoughts?
I feel like she's being cast as everything, but I also don't mind her being cast in a lot of stuff. So I kind of enjoy her performances. I think it's just, I think she's a little typecast. Oh, here's weird, quirky character. Let's call up Anya and see how she's doing today. But I also think that should they do Dune Messiah, she'll knock it out of the park. We'll see. We'll just see. I had fears about Zendaya being Chani, and I think she did pretty well, honestly. I didn't mind it at all. So
She was the
I'm
best
gonna
part,
withhold judgment on
best part of the cast.
You think so,
The
Warren?
second
I
from,
really.
yeah,
think I think she killed it, dude.
Yeah.
I've never been a Zendaya fan. I am now a Zendaya fan. I think she
Like
is incredible in this film.
she was very fitting for the role. She crushed all of her lines. I've used emoted like 14 different times today, but like the way that
Emo.
you can see her eyes just drop and the anger and the hatred and the betrayal all in the final scene nailed it the entire time. Like at the very end of the movie, there's only four characters who are left standing, and it's Jessica, Chani, Arulin, and Paul, and that's it. And you've got all four heads of everything that really matter at the end to the main character: power, family, and just desire, right? And then she just walks away. It's so good. Yeah, Zendaya, well done.
Yeah, honestly, like the two maybe the most memorable shots in the whole film for me were both at the end when the Emperor bows to Paul and everyone else that bows to Paul, and there are three
Yeah,
people standing, and it's Paul and his wife and Zendaya as you know, Shawnee's still standing up in defiance. And the other one is the very end, Shawnee walking into the desert and she's just looking up and seeing the entire um Fremen army going up to face the great houses in space, and she's just watching them fly away as she walks off.
well, Carter, what I was also
They
referring
were
to and what I
so
was saying
good.
is
Yeah.
that the other person who's still up is Jessica as well. Because in the
Well, she's
right, no,
sitting,
no,
isn't
she stands after Paul stabs
okay. Well, it's not she is standing up, but
Feyd-Rautha.
it's not in the same
Okay.
shot. I guess that's why I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
okay. Fair.
there's the one shot. It's
Yeah, yeah, the
it's
one
from
from
Zendaya's
behind
perspective, and you can
Chani.
see her standing up,
Yeah,
and it's Paul and Roland over there.
yeah. And he looks back and she leaves, which
Yep.
she doesn't do in the book, but I thought it added so much flair to the
We'll get to
character.
the end. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about at the end.
Yep.
Anything else? Because that was a really good point.
Um. Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. I told Joseph, I every time she's cast as something, I'm like, I don't know. I start to question it, but then when I watch what she's in, I'm like, yeah, she really is just an incredible actress.
Yeah.
So I am skeptical of it right now as Alia because Alia is one of my favorite characters. But I'm excited for part three. I'm very looking forward to where it's gonna go.
Wait, is it confirmed?
No.
It, oh, it's not?
And
Okay.
that's another thing. Like he did the same exact thing with this as he did with part one. It's crazy reckless filmmaking, but I respect him so much for it. He's just like he can't confirm anything, but he's making a movie open-ended and saying he's just going to make a great movie open-ended and saying it's going to be good enough that people are going
Yeah.
to want another part. And like, you know, he finished the book and but he did the same thing, made a great movie and said it's going to be good enough that people are going to want another part,
Yeah.
even though there's no guarantee of that. But Denny is just he's just charging forward with enough force to get the studios to bow to him.
I mean, if they did all the books of Dune, I know that would be asking a lot for a cast to kind of keep the same for such a long amount of time. Um, but I wouldn't be
Well,
upset at all. It'd be amazing. Well, yeah, yeah, no, I know that, but like, yeah,
I mean, have you read the synopsises of any of the others?
Nope, completely blind, Carter.
Okay.
Completely blind. So
Well,
like
not all of the cast needs to be around for all six or eight, depending on
so
how
I know
many
that about
books you
children.
believe there are.
So I
Okay.
know that about like children and stuff like that. But basically the first three, which
Children of Dune is the third book. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's confusing when we say the third because the third in movies is going to be Dune Messiah. Dune Messiah is the second book.
yeah.
The books go, there are two trilogies in Dune. It's Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune. That's the first trilogy. That's all I've read. That's the main story pretty much. Really, you can read Dune and then Dune Messiah and be done, but Children of Dune kind of completes it. Then there's a link, God Emperor of Dune, that isn't part of a trilogy that links the first trilogy to the second trilogy. Second trilogy is, I'm pretty sure it's Heretics of Dune, then Chapter House, and then the final part of the second trilogy is split into two books,
And you
and they
even
aren't
have
written by Frank Herbert, so it's
yeah. You
it's
also have a
questionable.
ton of other stuff that has recently been written. I think there's one
Yeah, a lot of
about
encyclopedias and
the
stuff.
Duke, like one about the Duke and Jessica has recently been written.
Okay.
And from their perspective, I think it's like Rulers of Caladan or something like that is what it's called. I completely forget.
Yeah,
But
just
yeah,
trying to add to the lore. It's like,
pretty much. So I'll probably personally read the next two books and then finish out with the original trilogy.
cool.
Anything else you wanted to kind of pick up on besides the Anya Taylor-Joy, or
I'll go on to my thoughts on Jessica unless anyone has anything else to say.
go for it and we'll build off that.
Okay. We talked about Jessica and well, we talked about like her look and all and her how people are scared of her and how she's just a little off in these movies. Um, I think Rebecca Ferguson does a great job. I think yeah, the costume is all just awesome. I will say that between the first and the second, I they don't really fully give her character they don't do it justice to her full extent. I think if I have any if I think these movies have any shortcomings, and this is the only shortcoming I have with these movies. I don't think they're perfect, but they're awesome. But maybe the main shortcoming I have with them is they're very, very, very Paul-centric.
Yeah.
And the book, while being it's Paul-centric, it's Paul's story, it's not just him. It's not first person. These movies feel very first person. Jessica is my favorite character. And the reason for that is because of the first book. Honestly, in the second and the third book, she's done a little dirty in the way that she's done a little dirty in the movies here. Not, terribly. I think she's still my favorite character, but one of the reasons is, and this is, book versus movie, it's hard to really, you know, translate it well and carry it over. But I wrote down one of the many, many things I think the story of Dune is about the individual versus the collective. Jessica is a Bene Gesserit, and she was trained by the head Bene Gesserit, considered, as her best student, and all that. And individual versus collective. It's Jessica who chooses. She makes the decision to have a son
Yep.
instead of a daughter because Bene Gesserits are able to change their physiology and all, so they can control that. And that's what sets all this in motion. It's her decision as an individual to go against the collective to spark what is the fire that is Dune. And everyone in the books, they're all, everyone has thoughts and internal monologues, and it's all stuff that it's information that can be revealed to the audience and not to the other characters. Because everyone has something to hide. Everyone has their own personal motivations. And I think Jessica's are just the most interesting. I think she just is such a well fleshed out character in the book, and she maybe speaks as much in the book as she does in the movies, but she has maybe the most like dialogue, technically, not dialogue, I mean, internal speaking that she does talking to herself, to the reader. And you learn so much about her, and she is just a phenomenal character and my personal favorite. And I think that I wrote this down. It's on page 261. I think that Jessica kind of she kind of cracks it. She kind of figures out what all of this is about, this story. She says this is when they're wandering through the desert after after they escaped captivity and they're trying to find the Fremen. Um, they just got raided and her not her husband, but the Duke died. She says, "For now, my grief is heavier than the sands of the seas. The world has emptied me of all but my oldest purpose, tomorrow's life. I now live for my young Duke and my daughter yet to be." And I think that is the purpose of Dune. I think it's about people being emptied of their individual purpose, even though she has all this agency and all of this I don't know, personal, reasons to make decisions and do this and fight for certain things. Um, the person she loves most in the world is killed. And I mean, her son and her daughter too. So one of the three. And then after that, she is no longer an equal with someone. She is just a mother of these people. And she decides to invest everything she has into her two children. And I think a lot of it works for good and some of it works for evil. The movie really leans into the how she becomes sort of a very scary figure among these people. And these, in the books, the Fremen fear her greatly, but it's really hard for a big sci-fi action blockbuster to understand a character like that on a personal level. And so I have my reservations with the character of Jessica, unfortunately.
Real quick, and I guess this takes like a necessity to read the book for this, but do you think, because I think this, I still really like Jessica's character inside of the movie, but I think you have to have Hawat to have Jessica be fleshed out as well as you would possibly want because of all of the subterfuge that goes on into thinking that one of them is the traitor and one of them isn't, and kind of the revenge that Hawat gets put on. And you kind of, in my book, funny enough, 261, so I think I have a different edition, but 261 on my page has Hawat on it instead. And one of the lines while I was skimming, it just says, "But who knows how a Bene Gesserit witch thinks, if you can call it thinking." And it's just this whole like she is on a different plane of just planning and subterfuge and moving forward and pushing herself in order to literally either die or live for the sake of her kids. And you know that everything's calculated. Her taking the water of life while pregnant is not miscalculated, is not a risk. She understands the physiology of a Bene Gesserit that's able to kind of eliminate poisons, and she is aware of just how much this can change the course of the world. Like she understands that yeah, Carter, I completely agree that she has rejected the collective to become the peak individual, which then makes her the head of the collective.
Yeah, that's how she ends up. And like in the movie, even like they say, Paul
Hmm.
says, "You're afraid," and like, she says yes, and she is terrified taking the
Yeah.
water of life because of her child, not necessarily because, she fears for her own life.
But she still does it. Like
But she does it.
it's always a calculated risk with the Bene Gesserit. It's always a
Yeah.
plan. What is it they said in the movie? It's plans inside of plans.
Plans within plans.
Yeah, plans within plans. It's a simple line said by Lady Fenring, but it really does show that anybody who is connected to power is planning to get more power. And the Baron is like, yeah, it might not be me who gets the throne, but as long as my house gets the throne, that's fine.
Hmm.
And you really have this kind of
And that, yeah.
this parental guidance, this parental protection from certain characters in just weird ways to just say, as long as they succeed, it'll be worth it.
Yeah. And that brings up just the insanity of this universe, in my opinion. I'll get to the Hawat stuff. I think that was great insight. But like, yeah, like you said, the Baron is like, no one's like afraid to die as long as people like that they have invested in continue to have power. No one from the Reverend Mother to, the lowest Fremen. It's very strange, and it's hard to pick. Even that line stuck out so much to me in the original Dune. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, I that was like maybe the moment that it clicked for me that Jessica is my favorite character. But as Dune goes on, honestly, like it kind of I don't know if Herbert really intended to make this a theme, but in my opinion, it's a theme. It's like it, Doom brings up a big issue. Like with all this, like, is it all worth it? Is it worth to keep humanity going if this is the only way to keep humanity going? I know that's a major question, and like I don't know that we're very smart enough to go into that. But like all this struggle and this craziness and these breeding programs and what Children of Dune gets into, and the things that Paul sees, like if this is the only way that humanity lives, is it worth it? Uh, Hard questions to ask, hard questions to bring up, but Paul seems to think it is. Jessica seems to think it is. And she also acknowledges that, it's maybe just she's acting on instinct, but she has that one moment of clarity, like, that's what I've given into. I'm living for my children.
Mhm. Warren, anything to kind of add on this topic
Yeah.
or
Sorry to
just
overpower
along
you,
for the
Warren.
ride?
Oh, that was good. I was gonna say Carter said that it was strange that people like don't really care about dying as long as like their family or house keeps going. And I think that was maybe one of the only things that wasn't strange in the Dune universe, because that's a very human thing throughout history. If, I mean, just think of history in Europe of all these rulers of different fiefdoms and whatever, that people would go to war for them so that they could stay in power. The very That's one of the touchstones that matches with human history, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so much of it is based on that, and I think it's a very dramatized version of that to show how absurd power is and the quest for power and the ruling class's obsession with power. I think it's a way to bring that to light through a sci-fi kind of
Might say
setting and say,
unlimited power.
look how absurd the great houses live, and
Yeah.
here's how the Fremen live. This is the way to go, not this way.
But I think that even the Fremen have their own little absurdities,
Absolutely.
right? Which kind of brings into light the first movie where Paul is out with with the sacred trees and each one of them takes 12 cups of water a day.
Hmm.
And he's like, well, then can we chop them down, save the water, and like help people live? And it's like, no, they would never do that. It's like these trees are
Well,
sacred to them and all that stuff.
that's one of the first things that identifies Paul with the Fremen, isn't it? Because the Fremen, don't they have so much disdain for that? Because they look at that and they say, that's 100 lives right there every
No, no,
day.
no, no. That's what the Fremen Waterer says they are
I
worth.
know he's a Fremen water,
But
but he's just employed by the Atreides. It's the Atreides that bring the trees there because they're like,
Yeah.
look, it's a little piece of home.
no, I think that's the
I know the
water
Fremen
area, isn't
waterer,
it?
I know the waterer says it,
No,
but
no, no.
because
But aren't
he
aren't the
is a,
trees sacred to the Fremen?
I don't think they're sacred to the Fremen.
I thought that's what it said in the first movie, but
I could be wrong.
my
I'm
memory
pretty
is
sure
not awesome,
Carter's
as you
right
guys know.
I could be
Okay.
totally wrong, but that's a very, very weird thing for the Fremen to
because it's in the Atreides
do.
city, right?
Yes, it's in Iraqi.
Okay.
They were imported.
Yeah.
They're not
Okay.
native. And so yeah, that's the first like Paul is he goes down and he says, this is very impractical. Why don't we, cut the trees down, save the water? And then he's faced with the absurdity of how the great houses live. Well, they're sacred trees,
Mhm.
They're important because
They're
traditions,
important.
Caladan, right? That's how we've always lived instead of adapting to a new planet.
And it accomplishes the similar thing for the viewer as it's very similar to a scene in episode one of The Expanse. They're on this essentially space station in like the asteroid belt or something. And there are a bunch of like working class, like lower class citizens all jumbled together in these basically apartment housing, and nobody has enough water. And then you go up like two levels and you see there are these like lavish gardens that the elite have, and they're just wasting water left and right. And it just shows you the contrast between the Atreides and the Fremen, because they're spending so much water just to keep these trees alive, and just where their priorities are at.
And I think that's the book has a really good scene that builds on that topic because the previous owners of the castle that the Atreides move into has a secret hidden room that's basically just fauna paradise with like a waterfall and or like a big just kind of centerpiece of water and all this stuff. And it was used as the previous lady's private quarters. And so it really just shows you the waste and just the decadence for the sake of what. And right outside people are dying of thirst and all that stuff. Oh, Carter, you said you wanted to kind of build off Hawat or
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the book. So we'll talk about how they removed Hawat from this movie.
They
But
removed mentats from the
Hawat is the
movie,
Mentat.
dude.
He's played by Stephen McKinley, I think is his name in the first one. He's a great actor. I'm sorry if I got his name wrong. He is he's the chunky dude. He is goes to the plane. He's always with the Duke. He can roll his eyes up and they become white and he computes things. And he just disappears totally. Like as soon as the Harkonnens invade Arrakis again, he's never seen again in that
Hmm.
movie or in this one,
Hmm.
which is a weird decision because he is just absolutely bent on snuffing Jessica out
Yeah.
because he believes Jessica is the one who sold them to the Harkonnens,
And he'll
who
do anything to get
pretty
back to
much
her.
betrayed the entire Atreides empire and got them all massacred for her own gain or whatever. And there are many, many characters just all around Jessica that hate her and that all just have stuff against her. They don't like her. Very few people do, but she keeps going. She keeps scheming, and it just adds to how great her character is, in my opinion. But yeah, so that I think maybe hurts her plot development a little bit in the movie. I think it's a shame that Hawat wasn't in this at all, but it to fully expand on his story, this would have to been a half an hour longer, maybe.
Because spoiler for the next movie, and Warren spoiler she as well, but oh well, should have read the book. Paul is also a mentat, and that means it makes him even more of a threat. Because how would you explain what a mentat is, Carter?
So there are no computers in the Dune universe because computers developed to the point where they became almost smarter than humans, and they call them machines in the universe, but it's anything that can like think. And they started a war, and it was the humans versus the machines. It was long and bloody, and the humans they eventually made it out and they won. And they banned anything that can the official line is like thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of man, I think. I don't know. It's in one of their laws in one of their ancient texts. So anything like that is totally banned. So they need mentats who are reliant on spice that can open the mind to make these crazy computations. They're, you know, beyond human calculators. They're beyond human computers. They're just insanely smart,
What
and they
about their
serve the purpose
helicopters
of
and stuff?
making calculations. Well, helicopters and stuff are not like thinking machines or anything like that. It's just something that uses fuel and gets you from one place to another.
Sounds like someone who was an engineer wrote these books.
Maybe, yeah.
But like I think the mentats add so much to the universe because you need them to have tactics to do finances to plan the big thing that the Baron wants after his mentat dies because of Duke Leto's poison gas is he wants Hawat and Hawat defects because he just wants back at
Against his own
Jessica.
will,
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
has
but
no other
he
choice.
except die.
Yeah.
But and then he's still more angry to get at Jessica than he is to get the Harkonnens. And like that's how much this character just thirsts for what he thinks is revenge and really they've just been played for fools. I do think though that this movie made what's the Baron's name? Because I just keep saying Baron.
Baron Vladimir Harkonnen.
Thank you. But I do think like Baron Vladimir is definitely smarter in this film. I
You
and
said that. Why do
I
you think that?
liked that. Um, just the whole plans within plans. It's just the subtle things that they gave him. I really liked the Harkonnen scene. Him having the wisdom to replace Raban versus Feyd-Rautha, to kind of just kind of move things in a direction, to be able to kind of give himself up for the next thing.
I don't
He
think it
doles
takes a
out more
genius
punishment.
to sub out Dave
No,
Bautista's
but it
character
no, but it's more than what he
after
did
he's
in
failed repeatedly.
no, but it's more than what he did in the first film, right? And so I liked that. I liked that he had a bit
Is
more
it?
decision.
I don't
I
think
think
he's like
so.
super dumb in the first one. I
Basically,
think
all
he's
he
very
does is
smart within
just
I think
both.
he's
I think he's
okay,
intimidating.
Austin Butler, you're off the bench. Go in there. That's pretty much all he
yeah, I
does in
think
this
it's
film.
just a it's a he subs him out,
But he plans it. He has the blackmail card as well that he wants to play, to kind of call all the houses there. And he's like, I will get the throne by blood or by blackmail.
which is
But didn't he
similar
say
to
that in the
his
first
in the
movie?
first. I think
Yeah.
he just has more character development in this, and that's he was. I
That
think
might be
not
fair,
even
but
character,
like
just
that
screen
makes him,
time, which which
yeah.
is able to show how smart he is. I don't think he like has a dramatic character change and like
Well, no,
becomes a smart
I don't think he's a
person.
dramatic character change. I don't think he's dumb in the first one. I just think he's like smarter, and they kind of let the character get flushed out to
Yeah,
kind of
so
show that
he's
he's
used more.
willing to plan and willing to kind of engage in the political warfare, not just be like, her, I'm fat, I eat, and I'm gonna stab somebody.
If anything, he was probably smarter in the first film because he was actually successful in the first film and failed miserably and died in the
What do you-
second.
I mean, in the first one, he kind of lets a guy through butt naked with a poison thing in his mouth that he doesn't scan, just so he can eat a bunch of food in front of him. I don't think that's a really great move to let someone.
But you see, there's no way to like scan stuff for that. They have to use people to try to figure out the mind and the physiology of a person in order to do that. And then his mentat fails to do that
Doesn't
and
Yue
dies.
say that like something or it's like this will kind of help a little bit, or it's like this will be a little bit undetectable, but if they wanted to do more, they could have.
I don't remember. It's
Okay.
possible.
I just like Vladimir, man. I dude, the stinking bubbles on his back
He's
too, that
weird.
or like the suspension gear or whatever
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
called. Love it, man. It's just great design with the little,
Such a fat dude.
yeah, dude.
I like when he shrugs his shoulders during the match. It was just a very goofy shot, very goofy look.
Hmm.
Just a little shrug.
Yeah.
Made me laugh.
With his super big hookah and all that stuff. Oh yeah. And then just when Raban is outside of his door and he just kills his servants, they kill bro, the Harkonnens kill a lot of servants, man.
Hmm.
They're just like, we get new ones. It's fine. I think what is the total death count? Like seven? Like five or six or something like that? Anywhere from five to seven servants just die because of the Harkonnens throughout the film. Wild.
Gar, I think you said you wanted to talk about the end of the film versus the books.
Sure, are we going into the end now? Are we gonna?
We could talk about worm riding instead before we get to the end.
Sure, we'll talk about worm riding.
So I like in the book how Paul kind of worries about worm riding the whole time, but Stilgard simply tells him, "Hey man, the children do this." I was like, the kids are able to ride the worm. It's not like it is a rite of passage, yeah, but it's not like this crazy, like, oh my gosh, this is nearly impossible. Only the elites can do this. It's like it's like, nah, you got to do this. It's like getting your learner's permit, man. Just got to go learn how to drive. And he learns how to drive, and he does it with a group of other people as well. A bunch of like 13-year-olds, I think is what it is. And here he is as like a more adult person just going like, I'll do this. I I I, I don't know. I just thought it was a great time for a comedic line that they didn't use, but it's fine. I still think the way it happens is really good. I love the overhead shots of all the worm riding as well. And just kind of the way they burrow and the sand shifting and all that, and just the way the thumpers call them. I thought it was really cool visually, and it added a lot to the film to kind of see them, to see the worms either crashing into to the Emperor setup, or to see them as they kind of pursued into the south, where it's just like that's a pretty big storm ahead. And it's like Shai Hulud is strong. I was like, yeah, he is. Big Worm's got this under control, man. And then just you got the little one that dies. And then one thing that they don't do in the movie, but it's like Paul is in a coma for Carter. What did you say it was? Like a month or something, or
It's
like
like a
3 months?
month, yeah.
Yeah. And for this, like, it's like a few days. It's like maybe one or two. But the worms are
N
like
Not
such a
even.
vital role.
I
No,
mean,
you know they had to get
you
there
said
and
you
then
felt like it was
come
a couple
back.
days, but it was bang bang for me. I felt like he took it and then Johnny showed up
Well, yeah, but
because
she
she
had
was
to
instantly
go.
alerted.
No, but she had to drop off everybody else, and they had to at least get through the storms, man. And there had to be like a dramatic walk and all this stuff.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah. Then she had to get the courage to like lose water
Yeah,
for
I
him.
get what you're saying. Logistically, that makes sense, but the film doesn't present it
It could
as
have
if
been
all
that
that has happened.
afternoon, yeah.
Yeah,
But pregnant Jessica also has to get there. There's like 3 days. Um, but yeah, I think
that's
the
when he just has this
southern,
quick little vision of the ocean and
yeah,
Alia.
everything in the South is great.
Yeah,
The War Council was perfect. So well done. Even the quick shot to Jessica of what would you say, slow down
think.
and just remember you have to ease these people into it because it's not a religion, it's just science. And how do you make these people believe the science to be a religion? That you're not really some god, you're just an elite form of humanity. But you need that fervor in order to conquer the world and to conquer the universe for you. And just the pacing of it and all that stuff. And how Gurney Alex slowly gets on board as well. And kind of the look in Jessica's eyes of like, oh my gosh, he is becoming the Kwisatz Haderach right now. Like he's chosen this path fully. I thought was really, really good. And just kind of the shot of him while he's walking into the war council with the worm just arcing behind him. Love that shot. And then the classic solo guy moves through crowd as people are like, "Who are you?" Scene from overhead, really good as well. And just that decision to kind of go back and fight him off for one last time, like it, there and back again. An Atreides tale. Do you guys have things to say, perhaps, or not at all? Things you liked, or no? I'm just curious.
It's gonna be a big hit. It's much faster paced than the first one. It's very, very action heavy. It's made more in an opening weekend than the first one did in 2 weeks, I think, was
Damn.
reported, which is great. It's awesome. Very, very cool. Glad theater people are coming to theater and seeing it and hopefully gonna get another. Yeah, Denis Villeneuve is one of the most impressive and technically proficient directors working today, maybe of all time, especially when it comes to making, grand epics like this. I think, I mean, really, if I'm being honest, he has yet to really make a movie that's truly emotionally connected with me. But he talks about that he's just,
It's because his ideal film doesn't have dialogue.
yeah, he's so much a visual guy. He talks about that. He's all about the visuals. He's trying to create, great images that really stick with you, and dialogue isn't one of his focuses. Denis hasn't really made anything that has, really genuinely touched me. It's all very, very large, and because of that, it feels very distant. And there's a way to do something with, immense scale and immense magnitude and still make it very personal and have a lot of heart with it. But I think Denny has yet to really do that. I think Arrival is my favorite, and that's the closest he's come to blending, the big sci-fi stuff with the very intimate. But that is like Arrival, although it is a very large budget movie and it's got CGI and it's awesome, it's great. A lot of scale, a lot of sci-fi. It pales in comparison to Blade Runner and Dune. But that is kind of the first step he took into the, I guess, third stage of his career. His first stage would be his early stuff, and then with Polytechnique and some of these, he got back into filmmaking and mid-budget. Prisoner's Enemy, Sicario. Prisoners and Enemy, I like, but they're not movies I ever think about. They're not movies I ever feel like rewatching. They really just don't affect me that much. They're, medium budget indie dramas kind of. One is a Prisoners is, I think way, way overhyped and gets so much praise for doing stuff that's well done, but nothing mind-blowing in my opinion. And Enemy is, if Enemy had been watched by more people, it would be felt about the same way, I think. And I would also say that it's a little overhyped. Sicario is kind of the his switch where he goes from what he was to what he is now. And I love Sicario. I think Emily Blunt in that movie is one of his best protagonists and gives maybe one of the best performances in a Villeneuve movie. If anything, I would honestly say Sicario is underrated. I think that is a phenomenal movie. But all in all, and I was just like I was trying to think about like what sci-fi movies really impact me. And it's not many. It weirdly enough, like sci-fi, like, in terms of like when I read, it's one of my favorite genres. It might be my favorite genre like ever. Like one of my favorite books of all time. Jurassic Park, Dune, really. I also really like Annihilation and Frankenstein, and they're all sci-fi. So I think it works so well when you're able to tell a story like that and write it down because you can really make it personal by talking about these characters, tying it into that. When you make a movie, especially when you make a blockbuster, it's so, so hard to really to make something, as I said, intimate and personal and to strip it down to the characters because it's all about spectacle. People want to see big things, people want to see explosions. And I think these two Dune movies are evidence that you can make that and you can make it incredible. And it's affecting so many people, and people are going to love it, and it's going to become some of their new favorite movies, and that's awesome. I'm so happy that, Denny is making movies and doing this, but at the same time, for me, it just doesn't hit quite as hard as I really want it to.
If you could just clarify that for me, what is it lacking to you? Is
Yeah,
it just, or do you not know?
um, I'm just very bad at articulating things, which is why I have a podcast. I, it just doesn't have the heart that I really want it to. And I know it really thinks it does, and I know a lot of people really think it does, and I'm not I'm glad people are connecting with it, but it feels distant. It feels cold to me for some reason.
Carter, I
And
think
it's
part
not
of the
him.
reason
It's
is
yeah.
you brought this up when we were talking after we initially saw the movie.
Hmm.
I think a lot of it has to do with so when we talked about Rings of Power, we all really liked the Harfoots because they brought so much of the everyday life and seeing what the normal peons what their
Hmm.
life is like, and you never really get that in Dune. You only get here's the leader of this family and the leader of this family, and then here's this person. Like you see a few of the Fremen, but they're kind of in like Paul's little elite Fremen group. You don't really see like are there any characters you can name from the movie who are like 11, 12, 13? Like all you see are the adults warring pretty much. You don't see everyday life very much.
I did say, yeah, that was one thing I said. There's no kids. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, there are like a second time I was looking for him and I saw a little bit more, especially in the beginning that I missed. There were a few here and there, but they don't say anything.
Yeah.
There's no Alia. And there's like I said, everyone in a siege seems to be either a Fedaykin or a priest. It's either, you're a warrior or you're this, kind of, person following the faith. There's no life. There's no like living. There's no sense of the everyday. And like you don't want that in a movie like this, really. I don't know that I would. I don't know that it would make it better. But at the same time, it makes it's hard to I can get invested and I really did get invested and it's great. It's this big war going on and it's all planning in that and that's the focus and that's the drive of the film. But back to Lord of the Rings we go. One of the things why I like a lot of people like give me crap for this, but the Lord of the Rings movies, they're better than the books, straight up, easily. The books are, they're good, but like every time you're not with Sam and Frodo, it's just Tolkien like talking about the history and the architecture for hours, and I'm like, I don't care. Even when you're with Aragon and Legolas and Gimli and even Gandalf at times, it's like, I don't care. I want to get back to Sam
Wait,
and
who gave you a
Frodo.
hard time about that? That's not a
Yeah,
hot take at
I
all.
thought that was like a very
It's knowing
popular
that you know. It's
opinion.
knowing that you know.
Oh,
Well,
okay,
is it pop?
okay.
It might be
Okay.
popular
Yeah,
opinion
it's a
nowadays,
popular
Yeah.
but
opinion, bro.
like, is it, man?
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
but
Well, look
people
at that.
will
I'm
read
not
The
alone.
Hobbit. Yeah, people will
Sorry,
read The
I'm not trying
Hobbit
to,
and love The Hobbit,
yeah.
but like
Well, The
No,
Hobbit's a
I love The
lot
Hobbit.
easier to read than Lord of the Rings.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tolkien though,
which is why
the
it's
Lord,
better.
nah, those books,
They
nah.
drag. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So you're in
And
good
that
company
the
here.
movies are so great because they have that personal element of it. Like at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it's about the hobbits, you know?
Hmm.
Great stuff. So like there are sci-fi movies I love. Jurassic Park is great. I think the Matrix films are awesome. What we'll get into in a couple months, if you want to really talk about sci-fi, that's just incredible. There's these movies with monkeys in them, and I think they're they're borderline perfect, and we will get into that.
Yes, we will.
Well, Carter, based on what you're
100%.
saying, I think I agree with most of what you're saying, and I think that's part of why I think sci-fi works better in the TV show format. Because I'm looking at of my like top 10 favorite shows of all time.
Hmm.
If I mean some aren't exactly sci-fi, but you count sci-fi and like sci-fi adjacent in air quotes.
We'll count it.
Um, I mean some of it, do you call it sci-fi? Do you count fantasy as sci-fi, or are we separating those out depending on how you count that? But several of my
I would
top 10 are
separate. I mean,
several of my top 10 are
they can overlap,
sci-fi,
but if
and
something
then
is
some
like
are sort of sci-fi slash fantasy.
okay,
But yeah, I think it works very well in television because that gives you a lot more the chance to develop characters and show what everyday life is like. Whereas movies, a lot of times, it's more about the spectacle than the world building.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd agree, Warren. Look at that.
It's a rare occurrence.
About a TV show.
And also just the ability to kind of live in a world longer as an observer
Hmm.
or a viewer really is a very powerful thing. And so like my copy of Dune is 650 pages, right? And so you're given so much time to kind of really delve into this world and to imagine it and to kind of maybe even change the way you view things over a little while. And yeah, I think that could definitely give a little bit more breathed in life to the universe, kind of introduce more characters, introduce more families and stuff like that. To cram Dune into two movies was a monumental task. I really enjoy the way that Denis did it, but I would agree that you do miss some of the small tender moments that build the heart, that build the emotional connection to the overall characters.
Yeah,
So great thing to pick up on, Carter.
it
And
it's
Warren
a
for praising it like that. That was really good.
yeah. I mean, as Bill said, like it's a mind-blowingly monumental task to not just take the Dune novel and to make it two movies out of it, but to make movies out of it. And I think Villeneuve pulled it off absolutely. I think his style is it's very cut and dry, which leaves me a little distant, but it's perfect for an action blockbuster like this wants to become that wants to go, above and beyond just your standard action blockbuster and become something that really makes you think a little bit about things that about the themes it's trying to bring up. And I think, I mean, we'll talk about, the ending as we've said we're baiting that, but much of how I'm going to feel about Denny as a director, I I love him, and I don't think anything's going to change that. But what's going to really decide for me is whether or not he's one of the greats, is how he handles part three. Because no spoilers at all, of course, but like Dune Messiah, Dune 2, this is an action movie, as I said, through and through, and Dune Messiah is not. So it like if this was hard to adapt, Dune Messiah is just as hard, if not harder, because of that. And I'm just trying to walk around like what happens, but it's it's barely cinematic. I don't know if it's even going to be possible. And that's the one thing, like,
Hmm.
is he going to change the story? Because the
He's
ending
already
is
done so,
is
yeah.
tweaked a tiny little bit, and that could have like, even though it's tweaked just a tiny bit, like that could change, it could be like a 1 degree angle, and then you see all the way down the road, it's, a massive gap. Could be great, could be way different. Could be not great. We'll see. I have faith in him. I think he can pull it off, but it's going to be hard. And it's going to be hard above all to sell to audiences. And it's going to be one that if they don't change it, I worry will kind of fizzle this franchise out, which might be the way to go. Maybe we don't need anything after we get this trilogy, but because they're making so much money, they're going to want to, so we'll see.
Do you think that now that the world's been established and people are kind of sucked in, yeah, I see what you're saying though, because the ending of this movie leaves a war, right? And
Hmm.
so now you want a war film,
Yeah.
or you're expecting a war film, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And so it's now what do you do with that when really most of these books really are a cat and mouse political drama that just unfolds, and there are explosions in the background, but
Hmm.
that's not how anything has ever been won. Everything is won by like backroom deals and just decades, if not centuries, of planning and strict calculation, down to a T.
Yeah. But like the second half of this movie has the second half of not the movie, the book has its action scenes. And
Yes.
even the first half, like the sandcrawler attack scene, is just like it's riveting in the book and it's riveting in the movie. Like he did that so well. But like you said, that's not the central focus of these things. That's just things that happen because that's the necessity that's where the plotting comes and then clashes and then an action scene breaks out.
Yeah, and not to fan fears for the future films, should there be any, hopefully, fingers crossed, right? But Denis has now skipped two major points of more just dialogue and or of more of dialogue based tension and not action based tension in the missing dinner scene and the missing kind of nature. And this is all kind of part one stuff
I would
that's
argue
missed.
three. I would argue three with
Oh,
Kynes' death.
oh yeah, so I'd say Kynes' death, Hawat and Jessica, and the dinner scene. And so he's kind of shied away from this type of a movie three times. Do you think that with the book, and again, no spoilers, so I thank you for that. Really
Mhm.
appreciate it. Do you think that it's something that he would even want to do with the way that he's taken some of these movies?
I think Denis is such a fan and has so much love for these books that I
Mm,
don't think he would want to. But I think if a studio had read Dune Messiah, they would throw it in the trash can.
mm, okay.
But yeah, we'll see. The other thing, I said this movie, Jungle Book, Christopher Walken, King Louis. The other thing this movie reminded me of, Jessica gets the last line of the book and of the movie, but they're different lines. In the movie, she tells Alia in her belly that your brother's attacking the great houses, the holy war has begun. And I just thought of Yoda in Attack of the Clones, bro. I was like, begun the Clone War has. That's like it's such a goofy it's there's way too much similarity that made me smile a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie, rereading really quick what her actual lines are at the end of the film. I wish the book had the book's lines were in
Mhm.
the film over this because I
Well,
think
here
it
we are. Let's
does.
talk about the ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Carter, do you want to start or Warren? Or I guess Warren can. Warren, did you like the ending? How about let's start with that, with someone who
Yeah.
has just watched the movie. Warren,
Are you
thoughts on
satisfied
how
with
it
this ending?
ended?
Yeah, I thought it was a good ending.
Okay. Do you want to expand on that at all? Like how it tied together or just overall good job?
It definitely felt like the culmination of the two films. It ends with not necessarily like a resolution, but a denouement where he's done what he's been trying to do for these, well, 1.5 movies. Of he got his revenge, he took over, and now he's in power.
Okay.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, like if I hadn't read the books, I think I would really like this ending.
Yeah.
I think it kind of brings all the characters' arcs in this movie to a well thought out conclusion and sets it up for the next one. But in the book, like as you said, Will, like it's Jessica who gets the last line, and it's Jessica talking to Chani, and it's yet again Jessica there at the center of everything. Like or pick working things out, history will remember us as wives, is what she
Yeah.
says, right?
Yep.
Amazing. And that's what that's because that's what this is. This is history. Like it's people are going to learn about this and study this event for decades and decades to come. But I want to ask you a question, Will. But first, I want to like ever since I finished the novel, the first one, I was like, huh. I consider it to be one of my favorite books of all time, but it's a very strange ending. It's it's not at all bad. It's almost great, but it's not finished. And I was like, because there was, no news and no confirmation that there'd be a Dune Part 3. And so, all that. But I've been thinking to myself like ever since the novel finished, like what is going to be the final image of this film? Like what is Denis going to make it? Like what will his decision be to be the last thing he wants to show the audience before he cuts to black and maybe continues the story, maybe he doesn't. And I like it's a decision, it's a bold decision. It's one I've sat with and I haven't sat with long enough for me to really make a definitive statement for, but I'm very torn. I'm leaning towards I like it though. I think it's pretty great. What do you think, Will?
So my entire identity really going into this film was, does it fulfill the enthusiasm that I had at the end of the first film? And after reading, it really boiled down to, please, please, please let Zendaya be good. Check mark. And then how will they do Aaliyah? That was like the entirety of my worry with this film. But I remember how hard this ending stuck with me. I read this book in 3 days while on a cruise. Like I was invested in this thing. It was about 250 pages a day or something like that. And I just chugged through it. And man, I ate it up. But I think the ending of the book sticks with me more, but the ending of the movie works better cinematically. To kind of end off on this huge crusade and to not have Jessica and Chani have kind of this inner dialogue. Man, I don't, because of how well it's done and how much I liked it, I don't even want to say that I disagree with it. I just think it's like our like and I
It's just two
know,
things. Like this is one thing, this is
yeah.
the other, and they're both good.
Yeah, and it's like the source material, because I know that the source material is loved and respected, I have no problems with the changes that the movie does. And based on that, I do like both, man. I wish a little bit more of the concubine wife um thing was in the movie, but it not being there doesn't make me hate it. Or just kind of the explanation of roles, I
Uh-huh.
guess is what I should say.
Warren's giggling, and the
That's
way
an
the book
interesting way to
ends.
phrase that.
Uh-huh. Warren's giggling because the way the book ends is Paul kind of takes on the same similar situation his father does. His father never marries because for political reasons there, there's always the option that, Duke Leto of, Duke Leto Atreides, could marry someone for political purposes, but he has no intention of because he loves Jessica. Paul loves Chani and considers it the same situation there, but is marries a Roland to become emperor for power.
And Chom,
And
yeah,
it's Jessica
it's
at the end
ridiculous.
that is explaining to Shawnee that what's pretty much what Paul's decision is and why he's doing what he's doing and consoling Shawnee and saying this is how I've lived my life and I you know it's been good. This is how you're going to live your life probably and
Yeah.
it should be good if you trust Paul, which should you? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
or that's why her last line is, you know, I forgot what she said before, but then at the end she says, history will look on us and remember us as wives.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says. The first part is just, we who carry the name of concubine, history will
Yes.
call us wives. And it's like, as far as the people are concerned, she means nothing.
And
She's
that
just a
goes, yeah,
tool.
and that goes back to individual versus collective because the
Yeah.
collective acknowledges Irulin as the empress of the galaxy, but from an individual sense, anyone who is, you know, Paul and Chani understand their bond, and anyone close to them also understands their bond.
Yeah. So I think to answer your question, Connor, I like both. I like the
Yep.
direction the movie was taken, and and I know that's kind of your answer, but with me too. But
No,
it's like
it's
I like
it's
them.
cool. I feel the
Like
same way.
I enjoy them. I was totally fulfilled at the end. I love an open ending, and even if there wasn't a third film, I'd still be very happy with these two films being representations of Frank Herbert's Dune.
And that's what I want to ask you because
Yeah.
I've kind of held my tongue on this ever since we both finished the book.
Hmm.
Because I was waiting because you haven't read Dune Messiah and because I was
The
waiting for the movie. How are you so at peace with this ending? Because the second I finished the Dune novel, the first one, I was like, "Huh, really?" Like as I said, it's a killer final chapter. But in no way did I read it and say, "Story's over." I was like, "Well, like what happens next? Stuff has to happen next, right?" Because there is like a war has just begun. Like Paul is has told us all about his visions, all like what he's seen and the evil that comes from his rule and his decisions. What's going to happen? What's going to go from there? Alia is going to, grow and become another, like it's something that the world has never seen. Like,
Yep.
where's that going to go? Like, I was just very, very confused that you were so like satisfied with this ending in the way that you are.
So
And I'm not like
no, no,
hating you on
no,
that.
no,
I
which
genuinely want to
ending?
understand your thoughts and why you feel
The
it's
movie or the
complete. Yeah,
book? The movie or
both.
the book? So I think for me, it kind of boils down to how I enjoy things, right? So long as I'm fulfilled in my viewing experience, that's okay. And I think it's because also I read the book because I enjoyed the movie, right?
Mhm.
And so because I enjoyed the movie first, I have respect for the book, the movie, and then reading the book and realizing just how much life is in this also makes me respect the book. I really do kind of use them as two different things. Like someone took the source material, tweaked it a little bit, but still loves it, and the book is just there. I'm a huge fan of open endings and like cliffhangers. It doesn't bother me a lot. I kind of like living in this idea of I have no idea what he would do. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it works for every story. Like the Lord of the Rings, I want him to get to the end. But like with this, where it's just like, now what do you do with total power? And just kind of ending, I think is fantastic
Well, a cliffhanger
as a
and an open ending are
concept.
different things.
Okay.
And like where you maybe see this as an open ending, I see it as a cliffhanger. Like
Okay.
for me, like if you read the Dune novel or if you watch the two movies, that's like reading or watching The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers and then ending and being like, wow, what a great what two phenomenal stories right there. A great conclusion to the Middle Earth.
Hmm.
That's how I feel personally. Like like in my opinion that like you're just itching to get to the next one. And all of this kind of revolves around the fact that we're living through this, which is so cool to see. Like uh, Dune 1 is coming out, Dune 2 just came out. We don't know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And I
Could be
think for me,
awesome.
it's just for me because me enjoying the experience of viewing something or reading something
Mhm.
is enough to be fulfilled in the entirety of the experience. I don't really need the experience to be concluded. I've like with a bunch of movies, sequels
But what
are
were your thoughts on
cool and
Across the
all.
Spider-Verse?
That's good. Like, which
What
one's
about the ending?
across?
Across is the
Across?
second one. Yeah.
Loved it. Loved it. And I'm like, I'm pumped for the next one, but I don't think about it like every day. I know that at the
I don't
ending,
think
I
like every
was ready for the next one. No. I'm not saying you do,
exactly.
but like
Exactly.
at the ending, I was ready for the next one.
Exactly.
But it's not something I really needed tomorrow, or I don't know. It's interesting because with the way that Dune ended, I don't really think any part of me was with the way the book ended. No part of me really was like, oh my gosh, I need to read the next one now. And then with the way the movie ended here, I also didn't get that feeling. I'm kind of fine with them just going off to space and us never getting a quote unquote conclusion or something like that. It just doesn't bother me.
I
I'm
think
like, okay,
part of that also comes down to Across the Spider-Verse ends with, you know, the main character's captured and there's this ominous threat moving in the background. Whereas the end of Dune 2, it's sort of just like is there anything more than like his visions of terrible stuff that's going to happen in the future? There's not like an immediate threat or anything.
Yeah, no. The immediate threat is that the entire of the houses are coming to destroy Arrakis,
That's
and
not
to kind of
really,
and kind of reclaim control.
they don't really show that very much in the movie. It's sort of just like implied that it's going to happen. So it's not like an immediate, it
They're
doesn't
not
feel
coming
like an
to
immediate
destroy
threat.
Arrakis because
Yeah,
he
Yeah.
has the atomics aimed at the spice reserves.
yeah, he's totally got those atomics.
They refuse to accept his role as emperor.
Yeah,
And given this, his Fedaykin are going to travel up to them and enforce it,
yeah.
sparking the Holy War. Begun, the Clone War has.
Did J.R.R. Tolkien not like this because it had Muslim influence? Because
It
like
wasn't that. It was
really, okay,
I don't remember exactly. I remember part of it was because he combined the Protestant and the Catholic Bibles into fusing as one Bible in their history. Because Dune
yeah,
takes place in like real life,
yeah,
like essentially like the world of Dune takes place millennium after like the present moment right now. And it's just a constant, it's just continual evolution of everything, of our culture and our technology development, our minds, our bodies, and every single house and every single planet is inhabited by, I mean, all the people are humans. The Harkonnens are humans, the Atreides are humans, the Corrinos are humans. It's all just different versions of them. And the Bible over time fused with the Orthodox and the Protestant version, and it also fused with Islam a bit. And there's all this different stuff about it. And Tolkien didn't like that, but there was other things Tolkien didn't like.
I don't know. I guess to answer your question, I'm just satisfied with it. It did exactly what I wanted, or it gave me something. I wasn't expecting anything from it. I was just expecting to be entertained, and I was, and that was good enough for me. And I think I was entertained in ways I didn't think I would be, and that always helps my viewing experience. It's like, oh, that's not, and I'm not the world's most creative guy or anything, but I'm easily impressed by things like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. So that's really cool to me. And whenever I see that in a movie, which is a lot in good movies, it really kind of helps my my reciprocation of the film and my enjoyment of it and just kind of how to take it in and how to desire more. Like the Dune movies make me want more Denis Villeneuve movies, not necessarily more Dune movies. More Dune movies on board, would love them, but just more Denis movies.
That's cool. That makes sense. As much as it can make sense to me. So that
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Do you guys have anything else to share? Or do we want to wrap up? Or do you guys got anything else? Or
I would say watch Lawrence of Arabia because this is pretty much space Lawrence of Arabia. And I don't know if you remember, Will, but when we walked out of of Dune Part One, I was like, that was a lot
yeah,
like Lawrence of
yeah.
Arabia. I was like, it feels like most like this one made me think about the Jungle Book and Attack of the Clones, but the first one made me think about Lawrence of Arabia. And then I got the Dune novel and the introduction. It's like Frank Herbert was very inspired by
Yeah,
Lawrence of
we
Arabia.
were
I was like,
talking about that.
look at that. Am I not the smartest person on the face of the earth? I am the smartest person, right? Because I can point at a screen and go, oh, I recognize that reference. But that's a great movie. They're both about, imperialism and colonization. And
All that good stuff.
Peter O'Toole has some of the bluest eyes ever, who plays Lawrence, ever in a movie, like ever photographed, ever in Lawrence of Arabia. And I can guarantee that Herbert was watching that movie and was like, what if my main character had blue eyes? It was like, wait a second. What if they all have blue eyes? That'd be great. Oh,
Uh,
very cool.
Wouldn't put it past him. So, Warren, would you like to open us up with ratings? Unless Carter stop me if you've got anything else. All right, Warren, you want to open? I'll go and then Carter will close.
Maybe we should do the sandwich with Will going last.
Okay, sure. Okay, Carter, go for it then.
Okay. Yeah, I've said what I've said. The one thing I want to bring back is like pretty much how I'm going to consider Denny as a director is heavily reliant on what he does with part three. I trust him, but it's a big task, but so are these. So I'm gonna give Dune to a 10 out of 10 with an asterisk.
Without
Amen.
another
Asterisk.
asterisk.
Yep.
A good man.
All right. Um, I was trying to figure out whether I like the first one or the second one better, and I think ultimately I like the first one a little bit better. But with both of them, sitting there in the theater, like fully invested, love the movies, and like for whatever 2.5 hours, whatever these films were, like, completely invested, love the story, love the movie. But then once I left the theater, I just never thought about them again, really. And I think that's one of the marks of a good sci-fi, at least in my head, is how much I think about it after the fact. And because of that, I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10.
Cool.
Carter,
That's
you're
solid. Very
psychic.
happy. Look at that. That's what I said. That's what I said. I say you're gonna give it an eight, but
And he gave it an 8. All right.
yeah,
Well, so for
it's just an
me, I
incomplete
would like
story.
to remove the asterisk now from Dune Part 1 and keep it at that solid 10 out of 10. And then for this, surprise, surprise, yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I really just loved this world. I loved that kind of all of the first book of Dune is now completed, done, and just recorded. It 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 was exactly what I wanted in every single way. And even the changes felt as though they were done with intent, but not like malicious intent. It was the entire world of Dune was in good hands the whole time, and then he knocked it out of the park. Hopefully, part three, and just keep watching from there, man. I also do. I know it's a big long book, so if you can just get the audiobook from like the library or something like that, it's a great book, man. It's long, but it can go so quick, and there's so much that you miss out on that'll kind of really build a love, I think, for the movie and the book itself. And I think, like me and Carter, you'll just kind of end up loving both of them. And it's really all right. But please give both the movies and the book a shot. They're well worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah, it really is amazing. It has the Jurassic Park effect, which is like just a major compliment from me. It's where the movie is perfect, but the book is like even better. But when
Hmm.
you read the book, you appreciate the movie even more.
Hmm.
And it's a cycle and it all goes hand in hand. It's just amazing. And I mean, I don't think either of these movies are perfect, but um I'll never forgive the first one for what they did to Kynes. But um
Yeah,
no discredit to her performance. She's amazing, but her character is just so shafted in that movie because Kynes is
very.
amazing. But a big old asterisk in this because it ain't done.
Ain't done yet. Well, I think that Warren, I still think with a 10, an 8, and a 10, that's still a pretty good sandwich. I would eat that
Yeah,
sandwich any day. So not a bad sandwich.
it's almost
Uh,
an ice cream sandwich.
there you go. Carter, would you like to send us out, sir?
I would love to. Kung Fu Panda coming soon.
Kung Fu Panda coming soon.
Maybe we'll get our in review out. Who knows? But until then, we are the monkeys, and talking about movies is our business. Thanks for tuning in.